moving along a dive that we planned. These plans are put in place. They're not something that are just they're just randomly selected. They are the dive plans, the dive tracks, the expeditions are driven by the scientific community, and we're carrying them out on behalf of the entire science and resource management community. It's supposed to be driven by the research questions of one particular scientist, like Patty or me. And so through telepresence, the technology that makes you at home see and hear what we're doing right now in near real time, we're able to have a lot of scientists engaged in an expedition, a lot more than we could ever fit on one research cruise that most of us are used to. Our scientists on shore are participating either from home. Some of you, it's quite late at night or very early in the morning, or they're participating from exploration command centers or their offices in their home institutions. So they're all very important representatives from our academic partners, our local partners, for example, at Underwater World Guam, for example, and our state partners.
It's so flat, it's good to kind of, I don't know, see how much progress we're making. Yeah. So are we looking for anything in particular, Watchley?
About 3,300. Oops, sorry, I turned you guys off.
Are we looking for specific rocks or creatures, or?
I think just continue to move along the dive track.
Okay.
Nav pointed out to us that we have now, I guess, about, what, 2 hours, about 2.5 hours left in our dive. Is that right, Levi? Yeah, about 2.5 hours left in our dive.
Right.
And we were, I think, less than halfway through the planned dive track. But
yeah, well,
that's okay. We can pick up the speed if we need to.
Yeah, we can move across this terrain
we're good.
Really
what are we
quickly.
seeing here? Are we seeing a brittle star down there or a sea star? Yeah, we're good. Yeah, let's zoom in on that. Yep, brittle star, and we're seeing a shrimp.
Holding partial. Okay to take more zoom.
Go ahead. Kicked up a little bit of dust there.
Nice, very nice.
Try to move past it.
Very nice. What is that really? Okay, look at the left side of that rock.
The left side of the rock.
Yeah, it's right up at it's just gone off the top of the screen. Zoom in, yeah, something feathery. What is that?
Yeah, have to get closer.
Little hydroid or something?
Maybe.
Can you identify it from that, or should I get closer?
Closer.
Okay, let's zoom out.
And there's no guarantee that even if you get closer, I can identify it. But we can try.
Just gotta set down real soft so we don't kick up a bunch of mud.
Okay. Thanks, pilot.
Go ahead and zoom in, see if we can get it from this angle. Should be against the black background of the rock.
That's full zoom. It's just tiny.
That's as close as you can get.
I can try to get closer, yeah.
Coming wide.
Get right on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Does that help?
To me, yeah, that's really good. To me, this is looking like it might be a carnivorous sponge. And looks like I can see kind of projections. So it's kind of feathery. Little white stalk with projections. Yeah, I'm thinking it's a carnivorous sponge. These things are really, really tiny. We collected a few the other day that were on a rock, probably about 3 different species.
Okay, video's clear.
Okay, zoom out.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Decent looking daisy chain today.
Can you explain what you just said?
Yeah, so on the neutral tether between the 2 vehicles.
You can see this on feed 2, right? You're looking down from
Yeah, you
Sirius.
can see the tether.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and you'll see, if you have really good eyes, you'll see that there's a purple line, and that's our lift line. So that's what we pull in and winch up on the crane in order to lift D2 out of the water on recovery. But holding that in place along the neutral tether is the daisy chain, and it's a thinner white line that's just there just to hold it in place.
Yeah.
So when we pull Sirius aboard, we can unhook it from Sirius and then pull off the daisy chain, and it just comes off
hey
in
Dan,
loops.
Get on the Okeanos Explorer line. That was a good practice, though.
Good practice. So, so yeah, if you're looking at the Sirius feed, you'll see the neutral tether between the 2 vehicles, and if you have really good eyes, you'll see that there's a purple rope, and that's our lift line. So that's what we attach to the crane, the winch on the crane, in order to lift D2 out of the water during recovery. And the end of that is attached to Sirius, so we'll pull Sirius up on deck, and then we'll need to get from there the purple lift line attached to the crane, and holding it in place on the tether is a thin white line that is just there just to hold the lift line in place, and that, when you pull it from one end, will just unravel from around the tether all the way down to D2 and free up the lift line when we need to recover. So we do that every day, every evening before we go to bed. Got a daisy chain, so we're ready to recover the next day. And yeah, we try to keep it as tight as possible, so we don't want it coming loose during the dive at depth. That would make recovery very difficult. So it's kind of a challenge that we give ourselves, is to make sure that our daisy chains are well done, in place.
It's kind of cool to see you guys. It reminds me of like putting braids in hair or something like that. All right, what is this sponge? Oh, and those bumblebee things?
Go ahead.
What are those bumblebee things on the tether?
Yeah, those are floats.
Right.
So basically there's one, they're closer to D2, so as you can see, it's pulling the tether upward, and it just pulls it away from the bottom.
Great.
Pulls it away from potential obstacles on the bottom.
Great.
And I wasn't talking in OKEX. But yeah, those
the bumblebee things are...
Those are floats, so basically they keep the tether out of harm's way. They lift it up from above the bottom just to avoid hitting the bottom or hitting obstacles, big rocks that might be behind D2.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dan. And because we haven't asked you to do enough, in addition to kind of narrating and keeping the ROV in place and zooming in so we can see this sponge. Gotcha. Thanks very much. All right, this. Okay. Now, Chris, to me, this looks different. This looks like it has a thicker stalk. It might also be a hyaline-nematode or ferronematode, but it looks a little bit different. The stalk looks like it's thicker. It's a glass sponge, a hexactinellate sponge.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree, Shirley. It looks a bit different. Even the top of it looks a little different, but I'm not absolutely positive. If you could just zoom down the stock a little bit too, just to confirm it's fibrous at some point, that would be
Yeah.
Okay.
that would be
So
good.
we have
Yep,
to
sure
average
enough.
about 0.13
Yeah.
minutes.
So,
So
plus
the-
the fact that it seems to be growing in
to
sediment, and a lot of the hyalomatids are
That's
sediment
definitely
dwellers.
doable.
So these are all the clues that lead to that family. But yeah, I would agree.
Sirius is
Yeah,
probably
that's about
still
as far
feeling
as
it,
we
but
can go on this one.
I'm sure the move's over now.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Okay, I'll get establishing.
Yep. Tilt up.
There are more than 8,500 different species of sponges, and so
Yeah, co-pilot, the move is done.
we sponge biologists and taxonomists tend to specialize in a certain group or taxon. And Chris knows a lot about demo sponges and hexactinellids. I think
Probably like
he's been
around 5 minutes or so.
specializing lately on the
Get a number.
hexactinellids, which are really, really a difficult group to work
Yeah,
with.
you could do that. The nice thing about this terrain is, I mean, we can kind of just go as we see interesting things, and then if we need to go point 2 continuous toward the end, we can make that waypoint. So not up here. We're at the top of this feature. It's pretty flat.
Co-pilot, that would be 6 minutes. Yeah, 0.2 knots for 40 meters, right? Do you want me to put another ship move, pilot?
Are you still swinging? I mean, we're not in a rush. Yeah, let's just wait. We're not in a rush.
All right, let me know when.
Ooh, what is that off in the distance?
Oh,
Looks
looks.
looks like it has spikes. Does it? Maybe
Wow.
just an illusion?
I see what you're talking
Can you do a
about.
snap zoom?
Yep.
I see what you're talking about.
Or maybe a kite?
Oh,
Giant
anemone.
ooh, looks like an anemone.
Let's go look at that.
Yeah.
Zoom
Let
out.
us go look at that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you could come down a few meters if I need to there. Yeah. Oh, it's one of the
You know
ones
what,
with
is that
really
one of the-
long tentacles. I'll come around the other side. It looks like they're floating toward me. I remember seeing this
Sorry.
last cruise.
So we're getting several people from shore. Deb Glixon, Tara Luke, Scott France saying Relicanthus, Relicanthus, Relicanthus maybe. Can we look at it from the side?
Yep, moving around.
Look at the length
Yes,
of
look
those tentacles.
really
at
long.
those
They go
tentacles.
way out there.
Oh
Yep.
my
Put
gosh.
some lasers on, that would be really good.
So this is Deb.
Hi, Deb.
Hi there. And so we saw a ton of these on leg 1 specifically. I think Chris Kelly was saying this earlier, that on the mud volcano dive that we did on leg 1, we saw a ton of sponges, and almost all of the sponges had these relicanthus on them. And Diva, who unfortunately is not on the line
for
right
it,
now,
yeah. Go ahead.
said
You can
that
zoom on
some of
YouTube.
these, I don't know, legs, whatever you
Hold
call
there.
them, can stretch over 6 feet long.
And it looks like
Can
it's
we
a
get the lasers on?
yeah, yeah. When we pull back, you'll be able to see the lasers.
Can you turn lasers on now? I don't think we had them on.
Yeah, when we pull back, you'll be able.
There
There
you
they go. That's 10 centimeters, so about 4 inches across.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
And what's
So
up
and
at
it's
the
on
top?
a stalk. It is actually on a stalk. It looks like it's on what a sponge stalk. They're,
we cut the lasers.
You can also
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead,
lasers
Chris.
are
see on the top of the sponge stock, there's
okay to zoom
one
in
of those
with
benthic ctenophores.
Zoom in on the ctenophore.
really? Is that what that is?
I wondered what that was.
Trying not to get my toe in his way.
Really interesting. Wow.
Pretty.
Coming up.
Okay, I
have a bit more zoom?
Go for it. Is that a little barnacle on the side too?
Yes, it is. It is a barnacle.
Sticking its feet out.
Patty's new favorite animal. Oh, this is a beautiful image of that
the ctenophore is amazing.
Yeah.
Does it have tentacles sticking out to the left? It looks like
Yes,
they're
it does.
hair-like things coming out of it. Wow. And they're really long, too.
See, now, Tara Harmaluk, you can use this in your class on deep sea biology.
For sure. All right.
Okay, zoom out.
Yeah, really nice.
This is the same sort of anemone that I've seen on some of the carbonate
The
chimneys.
Relicanthus. Okay, so yeah, somebody mentioned that everybody's
Was that
fishing.
Great. I'll just get a tight shot and then come out wider.
Wow, wow.
Do you want me to zoom up or down the tentacles?
Stand by.
So we're getting a closer look at the tentacles now. When we're finished with that, we'll zoom out so we can try and get an idea of just how long these tentacles are. Now, the scientists, the shore-based science team, do you think this is the same species as the one we collected before?
Just a little wider.
Well, it certainly could be. The other one could have been a small juvenile or something.
And if you want to pan down the tentacles.
From the taxonomic description of Relicanthus, Relicanthus daphne is the largest anemone described to date.
Wow, look at these.
Yeah. It's named after our colleague, Daphne Fountain, who's
These are pretty long.
oh my gosh, an expert in
Wow.
anemone systematics.
Oh, beginning to see
Wow.
the ends
Oh my
of
gosh.
some of them, but they just keep going. Look
So
at
this guy has got to be using some type of cream rinse because there's no tangles in there at all.
Oh, he is on
gotta
his
be
game
like 6 feet
today.
Oh, it's even
Yeah, 6.
longer.
Is that what you're thinking? It's about
Yeah.
6 feet long.
That's what I would guess.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, look at
couple
the
meters long
ends are
here.
way out here. I want to see the end
There
of the
we go.
longest one. Thank you. Thank you, pilot and video, for that
Okay, I was gonna
complete
try to pan back up.
image.
Hold this
Fantastic.
for a couple seconds, and then we can pan back.
Oh, I love to see these things.
All right, go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead and pan if you'd like.
Okay. What is that thing behind the arms? Sticking up. Is that another one of those forams?
Possibly.
Okay. Wow. This is really impressive.
Goodness. All right, I'll come just a bit wider to
Okay.
Beautiful.
get the whole organism. All right.
Okay. Full wide.
Nice. Thank you.
I'm going to go now.
Shirley. What a gorgeous critter.
No, this is Bruce. We have a question here from somebody at the IRC Command Center. Since the tentacles are streaming out in the current, The question was, do currents vary much with time? Do currents vary
Hello, pilot.
much with time or over time at this depth?
Hey, Nav, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. You had something on your right hand corner, I mean your left hand corner.
Now, was that a question
left.
about the currents?
Up left, you had something white a while
Something
ago.
white. Was it
Yes,
floating
asking
on
if
the
there's much
ground?
variability in the currents
floating.
over
Floating. Would
different
this be
time
it?
periods at
Floating
this
in
depth.
front of me?
It's on the ground.
Oh, it's on the ground.
Yeah, we have,
Right
in
there.
fact,
I
noticed
see it.
currents changing quite abruptly on the seafloor on some of the dives.
Glass sponge.
Just changing from
We'll see if he's correct.
westerly currents to easterly currents almost.
Let's find out.
Well, you know, over a
Washes,
very short
any
period.
interest on this sponge I'm coming up on?
So we're now, oh gosh, zooming in on a sponge that has another one of these on it.
Wow.
All right,
So,
video, I'm just going to set
Bruce,
real
I
quick.
asked the same question to some physical oceanographers in the department a number of years ago, and their take is that the dominant flow feature, I guess, in deeper depths is going to be tidal currents. The D2 tide, I think that's what it's called. And the reason being is you get to a point where none of the surface type of mechanisms are in play once you get to below 400, 500 meters, and so those all kind of go out. And there are some other types of features down at depth, but I think the dominant one is tidal.
I'm not sure what we want to look at first.
Okay,
Wow.
very good. Thank
Maybe
you.
the top?
Folks on shore, what would you like to look at first on this specimen? Top of sponge, anemone, things on stalk.
We're
How
centered
about
on
the top of the
so-
sponge at the
Yes.
very top where that little
I guess
cone
we're
is
We
gonna
have
coming
see.
out?
Request for the top of the sponge, the very top.
Tippy top, rotating up slightly.
I'm taking more zoom.
Oh, nice
Go for it,
zoom,
video.
huh? So that was
That's cool.
Chris Kelly at the Hawaii ECC. What were you looking for, Chris?
I was trying to figure out whether that's actually an osculum or not. That's
Okay.
surrounded by a tuft of spicules, but I just can't see a real clear opening. I haven't been able to see one on any of them.
Huh.
So I don't know. Shirley, what do you think?
Shirley actually has stepped out for her lunch. I wanted to warn her that the rice dish is really spicy. Yum. So, Chris, what can you tell us about this sponge?
I'll rotate
Well,
down.
I put in the chat room a few minutes ago
Guess we
that
can zoom in on,
this is the sponge that we thought could either be in the
if you
genus
want.
Calophacus or in the
I don't
genus
know if that's of any
Caledoniella. And I found Caledoniella in a reference, a marvelous reference called Systema Peripheral. It was published in 2002, multi-author volume. And it was in there. It's a monotypic
I'll just
genus, which
kinda
means
go
there's only
down.
one species. It's
I believe
Caledoniella
this is what we just the same
Calophacoides, which means it
one we
looks
just
like
got, right?
Calophacus. But the
It's a little
problem is
different
that
color,
it
but
is
it looks
wrong.
exact
The peduncle or the
same.
stalk is
Okay.
wrong. They have a picture of it in there. And
well, actually,
it
is
is
there any more
described in
interest,
Systema as being
on the items in
basiphytus,
front?
which means it
Chris
glues
Kelly's still
itself
talking
to a
about it.
rock.
Ah, okay.
By forming a plate of glue, and it attaches the rocks that way. And these guys are rooting in the sediment. So I think we're looking for a brand new
I guess
species.
I'll
I
just
think
kind
we're
of
looking at a brand new
pan
species of
left.
sponge here, and I don't even know
And,
what family it belongs in.
Oh, that's
See if this one's even
amazing.
longer.
That is fantastic.
Sounds good.
So our pilots are telling us that this particular anemone has arms that are even longer than the previous ones who were.
Oh, no. I don't know that for sure yet.
Let's not get ahead
He's
of ourselves. Sean.
speculating, let us say. So we're going to take a pan out here and see if we can figure out if these
If I
are
go
longer.
slower, it appears they're longer. So
He says as he's going slower, yeah, slower, it looks longer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hard to say.
These are amazing.
I mean, I can't be very precise, but
I,
25, 30 feet?
I still see
And that's a joke, of course.
little, I know, little hairs
I believe
of,
it's a little shorter than the previous
yeah,
one.
it looks smaller. Yep, I'm seeing
it's,
some
I can
end
zoom
tips.
in
It's
to
kind of
get
hard
the
to see the very
lasers.
tips of these hair-thin filaments.
I don't even know if we'll, yeah, I'll go back to
Where is it?
original one.
Wow, okay. So get a sense for how long it is, like 4.5 feet, something like that?
Would we like lasers next on the base?
Sure.
Lasers on.
Right. Great.
Oh, folks on shore. I keep getting kicked
video's
out
clear.
of
Video's clear. All right. So
the
that's,
chat log. Let
20.
me sign back on.
Nice.
yeah, we'll say 25 feet. All right. Watchers, are we good on this?
We are
All right.
indeed good on this one.
Moving
And
on.
we can mosey on forward.
All right, let's get another ship move.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right.
Why don't you push
so
out and-
for the ship move, the same as before. 40
Okay,
meters
I'm back
at
on the chat log. EP.
0.2 knots.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's
So I can
perfectly
read
fine.
all your messages.
Deb?
Still heading due north, huh?
Yes, Deb.
Can I ask you 2 questions?
Yes.
Could we
Nice.
get the quad
37.
screen back on screen 3? Oh, thank you. And that was fast.
Tara's on top of
And
it.
Is it back on
also,
now?
Can you tell us about how long is left in the dive?
Yes. Let's see. We have about 2.5 hours left in this dive.
Bridge. This is nav.
So,
Can we get
our
another
estimation
move,
from our
same as
navigator
before,
is that
40
we're doing
meters,
about
heading
0.1
000 at
knots,
0 decimal 2
and
knots.
should be able to complete the dive by getting to the
Thank you.
second waypoint, or that is the end of the dive, without any trouble at the rate we're going. What are your thoughts, Deb? Anything in particular?
Oh, I have no thoughts. I'm just enjoying the dive so far.
Me too.
Dragging your
Seems
right
to me, well,
thanks.
we know that this feature
only important
is
because
a serpentine mud
stirring up
volcano, but we
Yeah.
have
sediment.
not seen serpentine flow material on the surface. What we
won't go
have
back to that
seen
area.
is accumulations of a little bit of pelagic sediment and a lot of little white specks on the seafloor that are the shells of dead foraminifera one-celled animals. We are looking at a lump here on the seafloor in front of the ROV and are approaching it. Curious.
It's interesting on the Sirius cam.
Oh, yeah.
It's like something dug in or something.
What is that?
I don't know.
Is this I can't tell entirely. Is this a depression? It looks like a lump
Yeah.
to me from the view I'm looking
It
at.
looks like a depression
from
to
the
me.
ROV.
Yeah.
I think this is a series of depressions, aren't they, Patty?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the
tilt
pilot.
motion.
Pilot, are these depressions we're looking at?
It appears so. From my cam and Sirius cam,
Uh-huh.
it does.
Are any of these little mounds?
I'm not sure. It almost looks like something dug in along
Yeah.
this. I think it's maybe slight mounds, but it definitely looks like a depression.
Yep.
Let me just get settled and we'll get a quick zoom and investigate.
It's interesting what is in the center of this particular one.
All right, video. If you want to come in and let's take a look.
Huh. Ooh, this looks like something left over from a critter that ate something. They are somewhat circular. Can we zoom a little closer on these?
Of course.
Wow, you know, this looks It's not quite as circular as things we've seen before. These may just be this may be fecal matter.
All right, I think we found fecal matter.
Oh.
Washes, do you want to look at the other divots in this
Maybe.
area? I can just move along and look at the other ones.
Okay.
I could do a
Oh, and there's another cluster of the same material on
yeah,
the
why don't you
left
do a
side of
quick
the
zoom?
screen. Huh.
And if it's of interest, we can get better.
Now, this looks like more of a mound. Hard to tell with the lighting. But I do
Yeah, it
not
looks
see
like a mound.
anything projecting from the top
Yeah.
of this.
Can we go ahead?
And on the seafloor to the left is another collection of that same possibly fecal material.
Yes.
Okay.
Then another
Is it the right centered or is it the larger depression?
It's in the larger area. It's kind of in the center, slightly below
that.
center of the
They just
screen.
keep going.
A small patch of what
We're
looks
heading
like
in that direction too, Sean.
almost circular
Yeah.
little objects. Looks like the fecal material we saw previously.
All right, video, come in. And then, Wash, is this what you were?
This is what I was thinking about.
Yes.
Ah, strange. There's something white and something sticking up.
Something a bit further.
Okay. I wonder what this is, and
Holding
if the jumbled sediment around the left side of this projection is something that an animal did. There's a little white blob right in the middle. Anybody unsure? Scott France was saying perhaps sperm whales could go that deep, but there is something sticking up out of the view we're looking at right now that looks a little bit
sorry, video.
No, it's fine.
like it's covered
Coming a bit
with
wider.
sediment.
Yeah.
We can-
It's actually, let's go
Yes.
see what's in this other
Patty?
depression.
Yeah.
I think it
Sorry to
must be
interrupt
something.
us, Scott. Can we get the lasers on so we can measure the size
Sure.
of
Yeah.
the furrows and
Yeah,
analyze
Co-pilot,
those
can we
data
have the
later? And
lasers on?
Lasers
We're
are on?
looking at
Yes.
another polykeet tube right there, like we saw very early.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. Thank you, Scott. Good idea.
Maybe just like 5 centimeters.
Yeah, it's under 10. Maybe just under 10, or exactly.
And Scott was saying on the chat log a little while ago that he's wondering perhaps sperm whales might be able to go this deep. Bruce
That's
Money
what I was
said no
thinking, but I
razor
didn't want to
skates
say that.
from these deeps. Too deep for sharks as well. And Nasako Matsumoto is suggesting this might be a polychaete tube as well,
push out
like
to
the
the
one
left
we
and see
saw
what's over there.
before,
Yeah.
covered with
gonna-
sediment.
It's
So
lateral.
apparently they kind of glue the sediment to them, but if it is, it looks like maybe it's been kicking up a lot of detritus
Yeah.
from around it. Okay, we're
Looks like something
approaching
just-
another gouge that looks very, really curved. Jeez. Looks like the sort of thing you might expect from the fluke of a whale.
So, pilot,
Yeah, snap.
You do
what I was
kind of
thinking
see
is
things
maybe,
like this on
getting back to
seafloor
you every
around
15
Hawaii,
minutes
where
on
the
how
humpback
we're
whales,
doing
when they
with
come
the-
to
with our pace,
give
is that
birth
fine,
to
or-
their young.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to restrict it to something specific like that. But
Alright.
yeah, whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just looking for interesting things. We found something interesting, so we can hang out here for a bit. I mean,
Okay,
we
pilot,
needed
when
to
we're
do point
finished
2
looking
to
at
finish
this,
up the dive in the last part.
looks like maybe there's another
We can do that.
star
I don't think the
impression
waypoint is
off to
a
the
hard
left when
waypoint.
you
We just
zoom
wanted to
out.
move
Off
Take a
to
look at
the
the
left.
seafloor.
Copy
Yeah,
that.
if you can keep an
Washington.
eye on it, but
Wide.
Oh,
yeah, we're
video.
definitely not in a huge rush today.
All right. Copy that.
But it's
And
good to keep track of.
And maybe angle over a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's above us, above to the right.
Oh, above
and
to the right.
Yeah, you see the white impression on that patch of seafloor. Kind of looks star-shaped.
Up. Okay.
Try to lead me to it. I don't know if I see it
On
yet.
the left side of the hole.
It is
Oh, it's in the hole
near
still.
the left side of the screen,
Oh,
coming toward the center.
Yes, I see it now.
You see white streaks
Yes.
radiating.
Just give me 1 sec to, I'm going to move over a little.
Sure. And maybe if we zoom in there, we can see.
So there is one other possibility for these furrows for an animal. There's a big, very deep shark here in the Pacific called the Pacific sleeper shark, Somnios pacifica. And it's possible that these furrows could have been made by that shark. That shark can certainly get big enough to create these structures.
Do you have any clue what might cause the radiating grooves on the seafloor around this particular spot? May come up on your screen in a second or two. We're zoomed in on it with the lasers on, and the individual spokes of the radiation look to be about 10 centimeters, maybe 12 centimeters long. I can see 3 on the right side of what looks like a little bit of a, it's in a mound, and there's a little bit of a depression on the left side of the screen.
Copy
but
that
there are
video.
3 spokes poking out from it. I have no idea what it is.
It's pretty good.
It is starfish-esque.
Comment on this video. I just wonder.
Sure.
Looks like something dragged there too, maybe? Maybe not. Yeah, never mind.
Curious structures on the seafloor.
It's very a little cryptic.
Yeah.
Scott France tells us that the deepest recorded dive for a Cuvier's beaked whale is
All right, you can come up, video.
2,992 meters.
Move ahead.
And Tarluca agrees with
Yeah,
Scott.
I'll move ahead.
Sako is checking. There's a nice paper about this. She's saying the absence of sharks from abyssal regions is what the paper was about. Proceedings of the Royal Society.
Looks like they continue up the screen too.
Oh, yeah. This looks like more of that fecal matter.
Tara says she should have been more specific. I agree with Scott about the ACR trace. Lots of fecal matter in all of these grooves. What did this? So we're at a depth of 3,301 meters on the top of a mud volcano in the Mariana Forearc. We're seeing a lot of grooves in the seafloor that are quite mysterious.
Maybe eventually we'll find something.
Most of what we're seeing on the seafloor, light-colored, fine, probably pelagic sediment with little white
the
dots
comp just dropped
in
again
it
to 16.
that are the shells of one-celled organisms called foraminifera, tiny little organisms, and the black pebble-like looking
Can you please
things
find Carl
may be very
and send him
small,
up? Thank you.
manganese encrusted pebbles, or may themselves be small manganese incrustations or small manganese nodules.
Yeah,
It's interesting that these grooves have curvature to them.
Yeah, I agree.
So, unlikely man-made. As a guess, I'm not sure about that. But if you look in the second feed that you have on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the remotely operated vehicle view from the Sirius vehicle, which is up above it on a tether about 30 meters long. And so this gives us a more regional view of the seafloor, and you can see the orientation of some of these grooves on the seafloor scattered about. There's a pair of them in front of us. This is fascinating. Looks like something an animal may have made that dives down to these depths and just sort of scoots down a little bit into the sediment.
Yeah, washlets. It looks like just a path. Something was just making a path and laying down every 10 meters or so.
Okay. Les Watling is making a comment about these. He says, notice these little trenches are violent. They're sharp at one end and have spatter of sediment at the other. I agree. Okay, Scott, I got it. Scott says it's an Abyssosaurus footprint. Obviously, all of us are a bit stumped by this. But Les is right. Some of these are quite deep gouges. And many of them have little clusters of this light brown disaggregated material that I've been calling fecal material. I'm not sure that that's what it is. But
Video, you want to do a quick
is
zoom
mysterious.
On this?
Yes.
I mean, I'm almost positive it's the same thing, but in case someone missed it.
And this material is not covered up with this much sediment. There are some little white patches that look like foraminifera in the material or on it. There's a little white something that we're seeing kind of lower mid part or slightly to the right of the center of the screen. Is kind of waving up and down as we try to get a picture of it. I don't know what that is. Anybody on shore?
All right, video, you can come out. I think that's pretty good.
All right.
Let's move on to the next patch.
Well, there is a suggestion from Les Wadling that maybe this material we just zoomed on instead of fecal matter is just detritus that has kind of been wafted along the seafloor and accumulated in these furrows. And that certainly is a possibility. Although I don't see, when we zoom on the seafloor, material of that sort. Although if it's accumulating, of course, and if it's spread out, you know, distributed widely over the seafloor, then it would be hard to recognize individual pieces of it. And we have some rocks up here and another gouge just to the right of the rock patch. These things are bizarre. Chris Kelly's telling us that Jeff Drazen is an oceanographer at University of Hawaii and a fish expert, had deep camera imagery that captured a sleeper shark at 4,000 meters a number of years ago. Chris is saying he saw the picture and says it was so big that he only caught a small part of the body on the image. Fascinating. Wow. Sleeper shark. Well, there's been a lot of speculation, and one thing that, oh, by the way, what I'm doing is telling Shirley Pomponi, the biology lead on this expedition, just got back from lunch, and by the way, I'm Patty Fryer. I am the geology lead on this expedition, and Shirley is putting on her headset. And she's on now.
I'm on.
And what we've been talking about is these grooves, and they do look
groovy.
Yeah. Chris Kelly was just telling us that Jeff Drazen saw a picture of a sleeper shark at 4,000 meters. It was so big that he only saw part of the body in the image.
Any interest in those rocks?
Not these. Thank you. I'm going to wait till we get kind of toward the end here. See if the other mound has different material on it. We're going to be crossing on this dive two
Hey, Nav,
small
what's
mounds near the summit of the seamount.
What's happening over there with the ship?
Frequently,
No, the ship is stopped.
active
stopped a while back.
seeps on the tops of mud volcanoes, such as the one we're
when did
diving
it
on
stop?
right
Do
now,
you know?
have
Yeah,
a
we're all sold
mound
out, Sean. You can
surrounding
put another one
them
in.
where
Okay, yeah.
material that is coming
pricing
out
thing?
with the fluids that are rising
think.
to the seafloor in those locations
Yeah, it stopped more
gets piled up
What
a little bit.
direction
And
gets
some
us
of them
to the
are
waypoint,
quite
the
small.
next-
Some of them
the
are
waypoint
only
two?
a few tens
Is
of
it
meters
straight north,
high,
or do we have to
where the
go a
active
little-
seeps are
it's
expelling
pretty much
fluids. The
north.
fluids that I've
10
seen
degrees off.
come out at a very slow rate.
Yeah.
Although the
Just keep going
detailed
north.
images of the
That's fine.
seafloor that we have collected
same
with
pace?
side scan
Yeah.
sonar
0.2,
imagery,
40
backscatter
meters.
imagery show
That's great.
that you can have very, very thin flows of just a couple centimeters, or you can have
Bridge to
flows
the
that are
nav.
300 meters thick. So these things are very episodically active and vary tremendously in the nature of the products that they
Let's
produce
just
during a
keep
given
moving
eruption.
the same way. So
So we're going to
40
look at two
meters,
mounds.
bearing 000,
And at the top of this one,
at
it's
0
just
decimal 2
completely
knots.
sedimented. We see a few outcroppings of rocks on small mounds that
Thank
might
you.
have been old seeps. All of this, however, is just speculation. But we've seen a lot of animals here, Shirley. We saw
Try to
another.
catch up with the event log while I was gone.
Yeah, we saw a number of second one of these long
The relicanthus
anemones.
anemones. Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
We
Let's
saw
go
another
up.
one in addition to the one
Yep.
that you saw right
Yep.
when I was going.
Yep, just as
Wow.
you were
And
leaving.
HPU
Wow.
and oil probably.
And how did you
needed
like
that.
the rice dish? Did you try
I,
that?
I actually have to say I missed. They had already put the food away when I got there.
Oh.
So, but the salad stuff was still there, so I had a big salad, just as well.
Well, that's good.
Just as well.
The rice was tremendously spicy. I was about to warn you.
Video, I think I found something. Video, do you want to come in on
okay.
this?
We have a brittle star. It's moving its
Yeah,
arms.
this one's moving, crawling along the bottom,
See how
picking
they
itself up.
Yeah, they move kind of like a sidewinder snake. The last one we saw, well, maybe the first one we saw, had pushed its central body
Take
right
just a
off the
slightly kind
seafloor,
of
sort of
Yeah, go
standing
Yeah, we
for
up
were
on the
talking
tips.
about that
Close.
earlier. Some of them might be predatory.
Keep him in view if he moves, but still build the frame.
Yep, absolutely.
So what time did you
Beautiful.
call on that move, Nev?
We called it 58, so 2 minutes
Okay.
ago.
Okay.
Nice.
And so far, in this dive, we have one rock sample and one bio
biological
sample.
And we still have about not quite 2 hours left in our dive, I think.
Right.
We're at 3,299 meters.
All right,
We
video,
did
when
see
you're
another one of
happy.
those polychaetes with sediment attached around its tube a little while ago.
All right.
All right.
Clear. Thank you.
Let's see what's over here.
So our general heading for most of this dive has been north, maybe 20 degrees east of north or so, moving along from one mound to the next. We see a lot of these clusters of rocks on the seafloor, and I'm not surprised to see them. Actually, the mud flows from these mud volcanoes bring up lots and lots of rocks that flow will scatter across the seafloor, particularly if it's a voluminous flow. If there is very little liquid in the mush of rock and liquid that comes up, tends, I think, to rip more of the wall rock off the throat of the conduit up which the fluids and mud mush rise. So you get a lot more rocks if you get a viscous flow than you do if you get a flow that is thin and contains a lot of fluid. All right, now we're seeing a slight indication of ripple marks. Oriented from the upper left to the lower right, you can see kind of lineations in the sediment suggesting that currents are predominant. probably from the lower left of your screen to the upper right. And there's a sponge in the upper right, I think, or at least there's a white
another
blob.
one of the stalked hexactinellid sponges, stalked glass sponges. Sako Matsumoto from the Chiba Institute of Technology in Japan is telling us about expedition that was conducted in 2007 in Japan. There was a Hadal lander that they deployed at the Tonga Kermadec Trench and the northern Japan Trench, so not here. She was on the Japanese side of this expedition. And were there any videos recorded of any sharks?
Yep, you're tugging me now.
Cool. All right, I will stop.
And back up a little bit.
Copy.
So one of the problems with assuming that sleeper shark created those furrows is the fact that they were fairly narrow furrows. And a shark of the size that Jeff Drazen's deep camera system caught has, I think, quite a large head. So it's hard for me to imagine that shark created those furrows. So maybe a beaked whale like less than some of the others suggested, or some other type of shark, or I don't really know what other possibilities there are.
Mm-hmm. So we've had a question from Shore about why these sponges are stalked. So there are a lot of different morphologies of sponges, but a lot of the ones that we do see in the deep sea grow on these stalks. And part of it is that they can use those stalks to attach in these sediments, but also is that they can lift themselves up off of the bottom, where it's easier for them to filter particles that are in the water column, because for the 99.999% of the sponges, they are in fact filter feeders, and so they're filtering. They've got water canals, chambers inside their bodies through which water flows, and that water is laden with food particles, microbes, and small particles that they feed on. So the stalks bring them up above the sediments where they can capture those particles. So we don't, we haven't seen at these depths any encrusting sponges at all.
No.
And the only other, and yet, in fact, yesterday we saw a tubular sponge, but again, it was upright off of the surface. It's not like on coral reefs where we see a lot of encrusting sponges as well.
Sure.
You can get closer.
So what is on the stalk?
Looks like, let me see, maybe,
this is, works.
Gosh, I'm thinking that these are polychaete tubes again.
And are the polychaetes alive on this, do you think?
I'm looking, and it looks like I can see some tentacles coming out of them, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take a little more.
So that's up
that's full.
At the top, there's something sticking out.
Okay, so that's something that's sticking out of the top is a spicule. So these sponges they have skeletons, but they're microscopic, and in this case, of course, you can see it. So it's visible to the naked eye, but they make skeletons out of silica. This particular class of sponges does. Very intricate shapes. Some of them are very long, some of them are very small.
Is this something you want a closer view on?
No, we're good on this. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
You ready?
Yeah, this particular sponge, we're looking at what's referred to as the atrial surface, and it's inverted. Typically, the atrial surface in like a vase sponge would be the inside of the vase. And in this case, it actually has been pushed out, so it's concave and not convex, and the actual outer part of the sponge is on the backside where the stalk attaches. And so that's a pretty characteristic feature, in the Caulophacus genus. The little holes on the face of that are oscula as well, but it's just there's this constant little tuft right at the top that we see on all of these, which haven't quite figured out whether that's some larger osculum where some water also comes out of that hole eventually.
So is there an atrial cavity then
quicksand,
underneath that
but I think I'm gonna lose it,
point
so.
at the top? Oh, wait, now we're looking at something.
Oh,
I don't think so, Shirley. I think it's a pretty solid mass
Sorry,
there.
video, that's
And then when you look at the opposite side, there's the indented face on the other side where it attaches, and that's kind of classic for Caulophacus and very different from the Bolosomini in the family Euplectellid, where that Caledonia ella is located. So that's another reason why I don't think it's that particular one, but I'm still amazed. I keep looking at them because I really do think we're looking at something brand new.
Wow, that's great. Okay. Time for me?
Yeah, go ahead.
We've had a request from the shore for an explanation of what a mud volcano is, and boy, am I happy to do that. My favorite things out here in the Marianas, about 100 kilometers west of the actual trench axis, the plate that's being underridden. So there's a plate on top, and the Pacific tectonic plate is being subducted down beneath the seafloor and the crust and mantle of the Mariana Convergent Plate. So what happens as the Pacific plate is subducted,
what are you looking
it has a vector of vertical motion, so it actually is rolling back toward the east. What that does is it pulls the whole trench with it. So the trench actually is moving eastward in the Pacific Basin as subduction continues. Well, what happens to the seafloor above that, the plate above the downgoing plate gets stretched, so also gets pulled to the eastward. So what's happened over time is that the Mariana Arc has split apart, and the 200 kilometers from the active volcanoes in the arc and the trench is being stretched tremendously, so it fractures up, and you get these huge faults that can be as deep as 18, 20 kilometers. These reach the top of the downgoing plate.
Go for it.
Okay, we're going to first look at something moving, which is a fish. We'll talk about the rest of the geology later. Let's look at the fish.
Bruce, are you still with us? Bruce Mundy.
Yep.
Ooh.
Pretty high and
Yes, I am, but we have the screen lag here, so I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, you will.
You will.
Looks like another cuskeel.
Hurry up, Bruce. You're going to get scooped.
Poor Bruce. We have to let him talk.
Why don't you try to move
the screen
starboard
lag is a
and back
little
a bit
annoying,
too.
so I don't have it yet. Okay, now it's coming into view.
That's a long one.
Okay, Chris knows what this is, but this is, wait a minute, it's blurring out here.
Just going to try to come back into view.
Still got you in fisheye, but
Got a white lateral line, Bruce.
Yeah,
so
but this
back
is
up and try to keep
different.
him
This
centered.
is an eel. I think it's one of the cutthroat eels.
I'll take a bit more
But
zoom
it's
wise.
much heavier body and stocky body than the pectoral. The dorsal fin origin is way forward, I believe, over the pectoral fins. This could be something called Histiobranchus bathybius. I wish some of Jeff Grazen's group were on the line. This is a different type of eel than we've seen before. This is really interesting. The first reaction was it's a different type of eel than we've seen before. This is really interesting. The first reaction was that it's a hagfish, but it's not. The white lateral line, I'm not sure if Histiobranchus has that or not. So, Chris, what was your take on it?
Pretty far from him.
Well, just because of the white lateral line, and we saw one of these yesterday, we sort of automatically went to Iliophis, but that was on the sole basis of that. In my opinion, it's definitely a synaptobranchid in that family, so I wasn't sure what else it could be.
Yeah, there are a number of species of Iliopus, and so I'll have to take a look. A lot of them have longer snouts, though, than this has, so that may not be a possibility. I thought that Histiobranchus was a little bit more elongate, too. That is one of the deeper Synaphobranchus, as the name Histiobranchus bathybius would indicate, bathybius being the field very deep. So I'll have to take a look, but it's
any
it's not a
interest on
Synaphobranchus. I definitely
specimens
know
that have?
that.
All right, video, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and Bruce, the
Go
one
to
that we saw
Samson.
yesterday, you had actually stepped out, I think, or weren't there yesterday. It was identical to this one. It
yeah,
also
this
had
looks
that very stout and thick body.
Washley, did you say quick zoom?
Oh, look at this.
Yeah, we can just get a quick zoom of this.
Copy. All right, video.
Okay.
Just